Students gasped in muted horror as the Academy vid screens displayed humanity's gruesome Deathworld, where merely surviving the hostile planet was a constant struggle. Newly arrived human cadet Nolan Evans shifted uneasily in his seat, towering over the rows of blue-skinned Deltan students. At 28, Nolan was battle-hardened from tours in the Space Marines, his scarred face and muscular 6'2" frame contrasting sharply with the spindly alien scholars. A low murmur spread through the auditorium, every elongated Deltan skull seeming to swivel and stare at the human outsider. On stage, Headmaster Zorgun gestured for silence, his 7-foot frame commanding instant respect. Though he preached unity, his mention of the new human students provoked visible unease. Speaker, a smug Deltan ringleader, locked eyes with Nolan, his distaste clear. As the assembly dispersed, Nolan felt a surge of defiant pride. While most species thrived on tranquil paradise worlds, his kind had clawed their way up from a hellish evolutionary crucible. Let the sheltered Deltans sneer and jeer. On Earth, even a breath could kill the unprepared. Mere survival required grit these frail, arrogant beings couldn't begin to fathom. For humanity to earn its place among the stars, they'd need to prove their tenacity all over again at this judgmental academy. Nolan strode into the advanced combat tactics classroom, his eyes scanning the rows of seats. The room was filled with Deltan students, their elongated skulls and blue skin a stark contrast to his own human features. As he made his way to an empty seat, he noticed Spiker and his group seated on the opposite side of the room, their distaste for the human cadet evident in their sneers and whispers. Commander Zorak, a grizzled Deltan war veteran, stood at the front of the classroom. He began the lesson by outlining the various combat scenarios they would be studying throughout the semester. Nolan listened intently, his mind already racing with strategies and tactics. "Today we will begin with a simulation exercise," Commander Zorak announced. "You will be divided into 2 teams, each tasked with capturing the opposing team's flag while defending your own." He surveyed the room, his gaze settling on Nolan and Spiker. "Cadet Evans, you will lead one team. Cadet Spiker, you will lead the other." Nolan and Spiker locked eyes, the tension between them palpable. As the simulation began, Nolan quickly assessed his team's strengths and weaknesses, assigning roles based on their abilities. He took point, leading his team through the virtual battlefield with precision and efficiency. Spiker, on the other hand, relied on brute force and intimidation. He ordered his team to charge forward without regard for their safety, their movements clumsy and uncoordinated. The 2 teams clashed in the center of the battlefield, laser fire and explosions filling the air. Nolan's team used clever tactics and coordinated strikes to outmaneuver Spiker's aggressive approach, slowly gaining ground. In a final showdown, Nolan and Spiker engaged in hand-to-hand combat, their respective teams watching in awe as the 2 leaders fought with incredible skill and ferocity. Despite Spiker's superior strength, Nolan's quick thinking and adaptability allowed him to gain the upper hand. He dodged Spiker's powerful blows, countering with precise strikes of his own. With a final decisive move, Nolan subdued the Deltan, pinning him to the ground and capturing his team's flag. The simulation ended, and Commander Zorak stepped forward, his expression a mix of surprise and approval. "Well done, Cadet Evans," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "Your leadership and tactical prowess are commendable." He turned to Spiker, who was picking himself up off the ground, his face twisted with anger and humiliation. "Cadet Spiker, you would do well to learn from your human classmates' example." Nolan felt a surge of pride, but it was tempered by the knowledge that this was only the beginning. As he looked across the room at Spicer and his followers, he knew that the tension between them would only intensify, setting the stage for future conflicts both in and out of the classroom. As the weeks flew by, Nolan and Spiker's rivalry only grew more heated. They butted heads in every class, trying to one-up each other in simulations and assignments. Nolan's human tenacity and quick thinking served him well, but Spiker's cunning and ruthlessness made him a formidable opponent. In Xenobiology 101, Professor Zyloth assigned each student an alien species to research and present to the class. Spiker's eyes glinted with malice as he volunteered to cover humans, the most dangerous creatures in the known universe. He rubbed his hands together, eager to expose the brutality lurking beneath Nolan's calm exterior. On presentation day, Spiker sauntered to the front of the lecture hall, a wicked grin on his face. He clicked to the first holoslide, which showed a blood-soaked battlefield strewn with human corpses. The Delton students gasped in horror, their stomachs turning at the gruesome sight. "As you can see," Spiker began, his voice dripping with disdain, "humans are a violent, warlike species. Throughout their history, they've waged countless wars against each other, slaughtering millions in the name of greed, power, and ideology." He flipped through more slides, each one more disturbing than the last. Images of atomic bombs, napalm strikes, and chemical weapons assaulted the students' senses. Spicer spared no detail in describing the atrocities committed by human soldiers, painting a picture of a species consumed by bloodlust and savagery. "But it's not just each other they fight," Spicer continued, his voice rising with excitement. "Earth itself is a death world, a planet where every creature, every plant, every microbe is locked in a never-ending battle for survival. Humans evolved in this hellish environment, developing advanced weapons and tactics to fend off predators and conquer their rivals." The Deltons listened in stunned silence as Spicer described the horrors of Earth's food chain, where even the smallest insects could kill with a single bite. He showed footage of humans battling against massive, snarling beasts, their primitive weapons barely able to pierce the creatures' thick hides. As he reached the end of his presentation, Spicer turned to face Nolan, his eyes gleaming with triumph. "And there you have it," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Humans are nothing more than savage brutes, barely worthy of a place in the Galactic Federation. I pity any species foolish enough to ally with them." The room fell silent as Spicer returned to his seat, a smug smile plastered across his face. But Nolan refused to let his people be slandered. He stood up, his expression calm but determined. "Everything Spicer said is true," Nolan began, his voice steady. "Humans have a violent past and Earth is a harsh, unforgiving world, but that's not the whole story." He walked to the front of the room, pulling up his own set of holoslides. Images of soaring skyscrapers, beautiful works of art, and advanced spacecraft filled the screen. "Yes, we've fought wars, but we've also built wonders," Nolan said, his voice swelling with pride. "We've created medicines that cure diseases, technologies that connect people across vast distances, and works of art that stir the soul. Our history is one of struggle, but it's also one of triumph over adversity." The Delton students leaned forward in their seats, their eyes wide with wonder as Nolan described the marvels of human ingenuity. He spoke of the great explorers who braved the unknown reaches of space, the scientists who unraveled the mysteries of the universe, and the artists who captured the beauty of the cosmos in paint and song. "The same tenacity and adaptability that allowed us to survive on Earth also drove us to reach for the stars," Nolan said, his voice ringing with conviction. "We may be flawed, but we never stop striving to be better. That's what makes us human." As he finished his speech, the Delton students erupted into applause, their perceptions of humanity forever changed. Spiker's face twisted with rage as he watched his classmates flock to Nolan's side, eager to learn more about this fascinating species. Spiker stormed out of the lecture hall, his fists clenched at his sides. He would find another way to defeat Nolan, even if it meant playing dirty. This was far from over. As the Academy transport ship descended through the turbulent atmosphere of the remote, uninhabited planet, Nolan and the other students prepared for their survival training exercise. The vessel shuddered as it touched down on the rugged terrain, kicking up clouds of dust and debris. Instructor Zorgax, a battle-scarred Delton with a no-nonsense demeanor, gathered the students around him. "Listen up," he barked, his voice cutting through the howling wind. "You'll be divided into teams and dropped at different points across the planet. Your objective is to navigate the treacherous landscape and hostile wildlife to reach the designated extraction point. You have 48 hours to complete the mission. Nolan found himself teamed up with 3 Deltan students. Zafir, a lithe female with keen senses, Xander, a burly male with impressive strength, and Krios, a slender male with a talent for technology. As they checked their gear and prepared to disembark, Nolan caught a glimpse of Spica smirking at him from across the cargo hold. The team was dropped deep within a dense jungle, the canopy blocking out most of the sunlight. As they began their trek, Nolan took point, his senses on high alert for any signs of danger. The air was thick with humidity and the pungent scent of decaying vegetation. Hours passed as they hacked their way through the dense undergrowth, the heat and exertion taking its toll. Suddenly, Nolan noticed a change in his teammates' behavior. Zafir, who had been scouting ahead, abruptly turned and walked away from the group. Xander and Krios exchanged glances, then followed her without a word. "Hey, where are you going?" Nolan called out, but they ignored him, disappearing into the jungle. A sinking feeling settled in his gut as he realized what had happened. Spica, using his telepathic abilities, had secretly influenced the minds of the Deltan students, causing them to abandon Nolan. Betrayed and alone, Nolan steeled himself for the challenges ahead. He pushed onward, relying on his training and instincts to navigate the treacherous terrain. He forded raging rivers, climbed sheer cliffs, and evaded the snapping jaws of vicious predators. Meanwhile, Spica and his team made rapid progress towards the extraction point, their path unimpeded by the jungle's dangers. They laughed and joked, confident in their impending victory over the human. As they entered a clearing, their celebration was cut short by an earth-shaking roar. A massive creature, the vortex behemoth, emerged from the tree line, its body rippling with muscle and armored plates. The beast's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as it fixed its gaze upon the Deltan team. With a flick of its tail, the behemoth manipulated gravity, sending the students flying like ragdolls. Spica and his teammates desperately fought back, their weapons proving ineffective against the creature's thick hide. The behemoth opened its maw, a swirling vortex of energy forming within. It unleashed a miniature black hole, the gravitational anomaly tearing through the clearing and pulling the Deltans towards their doom. Just as all hope seemed lost, Nolan burst into the clearing. A makeshift spear clutched in his hands, he had tracked the behemoth's movements, anticipating its attack on Spica's team. With a fierce battle cry, Nolan charged the beast, dodging its gravity-manipulating attacks with agility and precision. The human and the behemoth engaged in a deadly dance, Nolan's spear striking at the creature's weak points, while he narrowly avoided its devastating blows. In a final, desperate move, Nolan launched himself at the beast's head, driving his spear deep into its eye socket. The vortex behemoth let out a deafening shriek as the spear pierced its brain, its massive body convulsing before collapsing to the ground. Nolan stood atop the fallen behemoth, his chest heaving with exertion. He turned to face Spica and the other Deltans, who stared at him in awe and disbelief. Spica, his pride wounded, begrudgingly acknowledged Nolan's skill and bravery, the realization sinking in that his own manipulation and deceit had only served to make the human stronger and more determined. As the semester drew to a close, the Galactic Academy buzzed with anticipation for the annual War Games, a massive simulated battle involving every student. Holographic banners fluttered above the central arena, announcing the selection of team leaders. Unsurprisingly, Nolan and Spica's names blazed across the display, their rivalry now culminating in a final showdown. On the eve of battle, Nolan gathered his diverse squad of humans and aliens, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a holographic strategy table. "Listen up," he said, his voice steady. "Out there, we're not just classmates. We're a team. We've got each other's backs, no matter what." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, a sense of unity palpable. Zafir, the lithe Deltan female, spoke up. "Spica's team may be strong, but they don't have what we do. Trust, respect. We'll show them what real teamwork looks like." As dawn broke, the arena hummed to life, the terrain shifting and morphing into a labyrinth of urban ruins and dense jungles. Nolan's team moved as one, their steps synchronized, weapons at the ready. They worked in perfect harmony, humans and aliens united by a common goal. Across the battlefield, Speaker's forces charge forward, their individual strengths impressive but lacking cohesion. They clashed with Nolan's team in a cacophony of laser fire and explosions, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Nolan and Speaker found themselves face to face amidst the chaos, their weapons locked in a sizzling deadlock. They traded blows, each move countered with equal skill and ferocity. Sweat poured down their faces as they pushed themselves to their limits, neither willing to yield. Suddenly a deafening blast rocked the arena, sending both Nolan and Speaker stumbling. Smoke billowed from a nearby structure, the acrid scent of burning metal filling the air. Screams of pain cut through the din of battle. Nolan's eyes widened as he spotted a group of students, both human and alien, trapped beneath a collapsed walkway. Without hesitation, he sprinted towards them, his heart pounding in his ears. Laser fire whizzed past his head, but he pushed forward, driven by an unyielding determination. Reaching the trapped students, Nolan gripped the twisted metal, his muscles straining as he heaved with all his might. The debris shifted, then lifted, allowing the injured to crawl free. Among them, a human girl clung to Nolan's arm, her eyes filled with gratitude. Speaker, having witnessed Nolan's selfless act, felt a sudden shift within himself. The petty rivalry, the constant need to prove his superiority. It all seemed so insignificant in the face of this crisis. With a determined nod, he raced to Nolan's side, adding his strength to the rescue effort. Together the two rivals worked tirelessly, their animosity forgotten as they pulled their fellow students from the wreckage. Around them the battle raged on, but a new sense of purpose had taken hold. This was no longer about personal glory or the settling of scores. It was about something far greater. As the dust began to settle and the injured were tended to, a grim realization swept through the arena. This was no mere simulation gone awry. It was an act of sabotage, a cowardly attack by those who sought to undermine the very foundation of the Galactic Academy. Nolan and Speaker exchanged a knowing look, their faces grim with determination. They knew that this was only the beginning, that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and dangers, but they also knew that they would face these trials together, not as rivals, but as allies. The war games had ended, but the true battle was just beginning, and as Nolan and Speaker stood side by side, they knew that they were ready to take on whatever the universe had in store. For in the face of adversity, they had discovered something far more powerful than individual strength, the unbreakable bond of unity. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.